Episode 67 of the Fired Coaches podcast. I'm real excited to have this guest on, Ryan Hawk. He's well known in terms of writing now his fourth book, which we'll get into, but he's written three books prior, host of the Learning Leader Show, has a newsletter, keynote speaker. He spoke to Microsoft, Dell, Dodge, LinkedIn. Just a great resource. And I love it because, again, going to his Learning Leader Show, everything that he does is about getting better. So really want to kind of pick his brain on some of the things that he's learned over time, and obviously talk about his book, The Price of Becoming, which will be released here soon in the middle of July. So Ryan, can't appreciate you enough for jumping on the Fire Coaches podcast.
Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate after all these years, we finally get a chance to do it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess take me back a little bit, just kind of give our listeners, which again is a majority of them are college coaches spread across the states here, just a little background on yourself. So going back to Miami of Ohio, you're a quarterback, you end up finishing at Ohio, you get into the business world. I think it's corporate America, doing sales for about 12 years. At what point from, going being a college athlete, kicking around with the indoor football league, the AF2, I think you maybe did a little CFL or had maybe a tryout there, to going and working in corporate world, and then where does it flip over to where it's like, hey, I have this knack to continually get better. I want to continue to grow, meet people, learn from them. Like, at what point does corporate go into what you're doing now?
When I first got hired by a family friend named Rex Caswell after my football career was over, I'd never had a real job in my life. I'd only had like manual labor type jobs, work in a warehouse, drive a forklift truck and paint walls, whatever the owner of the company wanted me to do. I had no idea it was in sales as a telephonic sales rep for LexisNexis. I had never sold anything. I didn't know what to do. One of Rex's ideas was for me to take the people who finished in the top 10 in the stack rankings the prior year and sit in their cubicles, listen to their calls, and then interview them and ask them what made them so good. Rex helped me create the interview questions. And so the first couple of months at my first real job, I spent sitting in the cubicles of the people who were the best of the best, asking them questions, listening to their calls, asking them follow-up questions, kind of like working this muscle of curiosity and really understanding the power of being curious and learning from the people who are the best. So that started right when I started in corporate America. I hadn't really lived that way before. I needed the push. I needed the help from Rex Caswell to help me kind of develop that muscle. It's grown a lot stronger ever since. Lexus also paid for me to get my MBA, which took me 6 years to do, going at nights, weekends, all that
Yeah.
stuff, while working full time. And once I finished, I thought I should go back to school because they reimbursed me. They paid for it. And, but sometimes going to college when you're already working and being told, okay, you got to take these specific classes with these specific professors if you want to get this certification of a master's in business administration. I didn't love that. I had no freedom or flexibility. I had to just do what they told me to do. So it wasn't like a really fun process. It was really hard too. I had to get tutors, all this stuff. Anyway, so I thought, like, is there a way to create my own form of a leadership PhD program instead of having to follow the rules of academia? Could I just create it myself? And so that's why 11 years ago, I thought, well, I'm a podcast listener. I'm hearing Joe Rogan or Bill Simmons or my buddy Todd Henry down in Cincinnati, Ohio. They have podcasts. Maybe I could start one and just reach out and create my own form of leadership PhD program and choose my own professors, my guests, and it'll probably increase the chances that I get a chance to talk with these brilliant people. If I say it's a recording for a podcast, it's not just a conversation to help me learn and get better at my job as a leader. So that's really how it started. I kind of stumbled into it, but I did, once I committed to doing it, I committed to creating, I think, a high caliber, a show of excellence. I studied iTunes, was what it was called at the time. There wasn't Spotify or any of these other services. I studied how someone hits new and noteworthy those first 8 weeks. I really dug in and kind of gave it my all on learning how to become a better interviewer, how to do research, how to be prepared. I learned how to write cold emails based on all my work as a sales rep at LexisNexis. So I kind of used all the skills that I'd been developing and tried to work other muscles, and that's how it got started. And we can get into how it's gone since then. But fortunately, people started listening, and it created the opportunity for me to leave corporate America in late 2017, which is what I did, and it's what I've been doing ever since.
No, that's an awesome story. And what I've loved about the work that you've done is you talk about knowing how to send a cold email from being in the corporate world and starting your podcast, everything that I feel like you've done, you've laid a blueprint and written about it and shared it out to people, right? Even the interview questions where you're like, use how and what to get better questions and answered and things like that. And so I think everything that you've kind of laid out there is awesome. You talked about the curiosity standpoint, and then how this all got started, but in your book, The Pursuit of Excellence, you had talked about your grandfather, Dean, I think it is, and how good of a leader he is. And obviously, you've had your dad and your brother AJ on here for episode 300 and 600, and just kind of talk about where that all started. Because obviously, you being a college athlete and going in the corporate world and having success, like obviously there was things that apples that fall from the tree, and it wasn't too far from your growing up and where you've learned some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think those talk about my dad and my grandpa Hawk, who passed away recently. That I think it was kind of I mean, it was a very sad day at his funeral, but also inspiring day to hear what people said. They talked so much about him just being such an uplifting, energizing, selfless leader who always was trying to help other people, a true servant leader, like literally every day of his life. And so I think, that's just an amazing example. My dad's the same way. He's always trying to help other people. There's so many stories that come out. I was able to speak at his retirement party. And I also created this book for him where I asked, 50 plus people to write kind of a letter to him that I could compile in one book. And I mean, what a gift that was to me. Like I still have that and I get to read through it. And I actually read some of those letters at that retirement party. And they were all around the fact that he still has this zest and joy for helping other people and serving them. An amazing email writer, an amazing communicator, an amazing speaker, an inspiring storyteller. It's like, dude, I mean, we hit the parent lottery with my mom and my dad. So I think when you've been given a lot, which we have, I think you have a responsibility to give even more. I think you should try really, really hard to leave a positive dent in the world, to give more than you've gotten. And when you've gotten a ton and you continue to get a ton, which we do, man, that's a huge responsibility. It's very inspiring though. It's a huge why in my life to try to give more than I've gotten because that's going to be hard to do. I'm it's not even close yet, but I will always try, and it's powerful. Yeah, it's powerful. So yeah, I think it takes a little bit of age. I don't know how you experience this, Marcus, but for me, it's taken. When you're a kid, you don't really think of how lucky you are. You just kind of like are selfish, and you do your thing, and you play sports, and you go to college. But then as you get a little bit older and wiser, you're like, "Oh my god, this is like a massive stroke of luck. Like, let me try to make the most of this thing." And so that's what I'm trying to do.
No, I love that 100%. And I agree, right? Like when you finally get some time to reflect a little bit and my dad was always the connector, I always said. And I've taken that on, right? Maybe to another level. And you look back and you're like, well, yeah, the reason I do that, right, is because of my dad. And I'm sure
Are
he
you a
learned it
dad
from
too?
somebody else. I am, yeah, 5-year-old.
Oh,
So
that's isn't it cool? Like it's another whole level now that you've for the past 5 years where you get to try. Now you're like, I'm the example and I gotta be the model of what all the good is. It's wild how that impacts you both as being like a present dad, but then also thinking like every single thing I do, I am the model because I've had those models in my life. And yes, we're all human and we mess up, but also trying really hard to kind of set the standard. To me, that's like it's such a cool responsibility. It's the most important
yeah.
act of leadership we will ever have, and it never goes away, right? Like you never have won the game. You have moments where it goes
Yeah.
well, but you never have this arrival moment, right? You're always kind of have to stick at it, stick to it. So to me, I love that though. Like I love it. I take it as such a again super grateful that it's what I get to do and just continue to try to get better at it.
I think it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, you had tweeted something about asking better questions
Mhm.
and talking to your kids. And, I've kind of actually tried taking that on. She's in kindergarten, right? And she's kind of looking at me like, Dad, what? I'm like, what'd you ask today? And she's like, well, why does a cheetah run faster than this? And I'm like, well, you're at least like starting to get, it's little things like that where you're like, again, just being curious in kindergarten, right? If I would have been curious instead of maybe not getting curious until I was 24 years old,
Yeah.
just where that can take you and things like that. So I guess, you starting this and interviewing people, and now I think it's 700, if not a little bit over 700. Obviously, you're about to publish your fourth book, the keynote speaking. Like when you started interviewing people, did you ever have like a, if I could get here, or was it like, I'm just going to sit down and learn from people and wherever it goes, it goes?
Yeah, it truly was. I had a full-time job. I was, things had gone well as an individual contributor, and then a little rocky after that first promotion, which is what Welcome to Management, my first book's really all about, is that jump. It's tough. It's not like being a quarterback in the huddle. There are elements of quarterbacking that play in the business world, but there's still a lot of different elements that I was struggling with. Um, and so that to me was really the focus of the podcast, was just to try to become a better leader, to create my own form of leadership PhD program, because it's hard. And I wanted to talk to people outside of sports, because that was really the only area that I had practiced and learned leadership from coaches, other quarterbacks, other players. So yeah, the original intent was for me to, was for me search, right? As David Epstein says, it was for me to try to improve, to get better, to learn, to grow. And yeah, I mean, I certainly hoped other people would get value from it. If you release it publicly for others, I think all of us probably have that hope, is that whether it's a book, a podcast, or anything you're going to put out, that you hope it helps other people. There's no, at that point though, there isn't a lot of that's out of my control. So I try to focus on chasing down my curiosity with great rigor. And if I did that, and if I continue to do that, then maybe that would be helpful for other people. And fortunately, it has been, and it's what I get to do for a living now. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But no, there was no goal, there was no idea, there was no dream. It was just kind of a more of the less exciting version of the plotter. Like I can just kind of take the next step and then the next step. Consistency is a part of our family DNA. None of us are brilliant, but we all can endure. We all can get up and get after it each day. I think that's a part of what I was born with, and what I've really tried to strengthen, certainly from watching my parents, my grandparents, my brothers. I think that that's helped too. That's just the way that we need to be. And that can be powerful if you're willing to watch the power of compounding over the years, if you're willing to get up and get after it each day. And you don't necessarily need to be brilliant if you're willing to get up and do that each day, and that's what we try to do.
So your newsletter went out this morning, 518, number 518. Have you missed a week since you
No,
started? You have not.
no, no, no. I think it's important. Consistency builds trust. I get occasionally a friend will say, you should just focus on quality, don't worry about consistency. And I'd say it's not an either or, it's an and. The quality bar needs to continually rise, and the consistency needs to stay there. I think people like, from my conversations, both private and public, I think they like to say that consistency isn't important because they're not consistent, and because it's hard. It's really hard to consistently put something out. So I've never missed a Sunday at 7 p.m. for my podcast in 11 years, and haven't missed a Monday in the past 518 consecutive weeks. So I think, to me, again, if I'm not, I try to ship work that's super useful, but there are people that are occasionally brilliant. Like Morgan Housel is a great example. He is brilliant every time he ships work. Every article he posts on Collaborative Fun, his books are brilliant. When he speaks on his podcast or as a guest on a podcast, every time I'm blown away. I listen, I read them all of it. He's not consistent at all, at least with his publishing, because he's that good. He's that good. I think you have to assume that you're not going to be that good. So you have to then rely on consistency, and hopefully the quality bar continues to just get better and better and better and better. So it's a consistency and quality thing, not a consistency or quality. So for the rest of us, you're right. James Clear is one of the few who's actually got, I think, both. He's brilliant every time and he's consistent. But there's just so few people in the world that are that impressive, that are that good. Most of us are not. And so I'm trying to, I think my quality bar is very, very high and getting higher, but consistency is just a part of, again, a part of what I think my family's DNA is. My brother's that way. My parents are that way. And so I'm trying to keep leaning on that to build trust and build parasocial relationships as I go. And that's what I think has helped with the growth of the business as a whole.
Yeah. Right before we get into the books, I mean, again, you've had over 700 guests on. A lot of these learnings I know come from a lot of the people that you've sat down with. I mean, over time, how do you organize your thoughts? And ideas and find these trends because you have all these people. And again, like I've had, obviously now you mean 67 in terms of guests, right? And you have notes and you have nuggets and different things from all these episodes, and you have maybe some trends of things that people talk about. But how do you keep that organized just in your life? Of, I know you've talked about before about things that are in theory and you want to take it into action. Like you have all these things out there, like how do you pick and choose like what's really important, and then again, like how do you go about organizing that?
So I am curious to hear how you do this too. So I'll walk through my process, and then maybe you can walk through yours. It could be helpful to just to hear, compare, and contrast. So think about like each guest, just under 700 right now. And so each one, here's the process. So there's the guest selection. Okay. That's deciding that you're going to have that person on the show, which there's a lot that goes into it, but some of the key things are they're trying to leave a positive dent in the world. They've achieved some things. They've made a difference. They're a good communicator, compelling storyteller, right? And I'm curious enough about them to do 10 to 15 hours worth of research before we record. That's a big and. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's the beginning. That's the front part. Then we have the conversation, which is like you and I are having right now. As we have the conversation, I'm handwriting notes because I think that helps me remember things. I'm handwriting like things they say. I'm trying not to be too distracting to the guests by looking down and writing, but I do that at times. If you watch the videos on YouTube and clips, you'll notice my head is down at times, which people criticize me for, but whatever. It's part of my process to learn. Then I type out the notes after handwriting the notes. Then I review the show notes. Then I publish the show notes page. Then I listen to the episode after it's published at the same time that a listener would listen so that it's just as fresh in my mind as it is for them. So think about that whole process of all of the prep, then the doing of the thing, then the note taking, then the second part of the note taking, then the re listening to the thing after having done the thing. It sticks in my mind. That whole series of events helps it become pretty sticky and memorable so that when I'm in a random room giving a keynote speech or doing a Q&A or I'm in a leadership circle meeting or wherever I am, some stuff just kind of just pops in there. Like I don't know how.
Yeah.
It's probably just from all of
The
that.
repetition of, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, it becomes sticky, and so I could pull from it at any time, I don't know, and you'll hear it just comes up in regular conversations every single day, whether I'm on the sidelines of my daughter's soccer game or I'm doing a podcast or a speech or whatever, so I'd say that's, like, my process to execute on that, and then I'm always trying to run experiments with things that I learned, the doing of it, right? If it stays theoretical, then I mean, I guess it could potentially help other people, but I want to be like actually doing stuff. I want to be making a difference. I want to be improving. And so you have to go from all of the fueling the intake engine to the actually experimentation, the doing of the thing, and then having a reflection stage afterward. There's after action reviews to figure out what worked, what didn't, what should I keep doing, what should I stop doing as I progress. So that's really part of it. I mean, we could go deeper in any area that you're curious about, but that
No,
to me is how I try to do it.
that makes a lot of sense. And obviously mine, it's probably doing 1 to 2 hours of research beforehand. It's finding a college coach who, was resigned or fired or had a contract not renewed, or even like yourself, right? Like obviously you hadn't done coaching, but you were an athlete and lost a role. And like, your identity with football ended at some point, right? Which I think is real for athletes. And so having commonalities like that, but then going through the episode, and I think actually this is maybe where I'm going to take a step back is, lately, obviously with all the AI tools, and AI can be great, right? But it's, doing show notes and different stuff like that and things that I used to manually edit, manually take by hand. I used to jot things down, and now I'm so much relying on AI. Well, what I'm realizing too is I'm not remembering this like I used to when I was jotting things down. So I think like finding a happy balance there of like, okay, what can AI do for me, but what also is important for my learning and leading. Not that it's just like, oh, great, that show's done, it's all captured and everything, but it's like, now if somebody was to ask me from the last week, sure, I'd remember pretty much everything about that episode. But you go 3, 4 weeks ago, as you do more and more and more, and it's like, well, I don't remember because AI had that and I'm not jotting as much down. So I think like that's really important too. And I do always usually listen at least one time through after it's done. I think that does help as well too. But I think there's ways for me to better remember. And that makes complete sense, right? Like you put so much effort into it, not only leading up to it, but post work that it's like almost like a football, like Sean McVay, right? When he's like, oh, in third quarter of week 10, we were on this sideline, and you just remember everything so perfect because you just so much into it.
Yeah,
Um,
the AI thing is really important because I don't know if you spend much time on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is just a series of AI slop posts by people. And it's obvious. You can read them, you can feel it when you see the M dashes. It's not this, it's that. You can see the patterns that Claude or Chat GPT or whatever you use is popping up. And so I try really hard to encourage the leaders that I work with to not do that first and foremost because it's obvious, it's not good, and it's definitely not helping them. In fact, I think it's hurting them. And we have to be careful not to outsource our thinking. It's like, to me, it's like going to the gym, standing there, looking around, and then walking out the door. Like you did not get any benefit from going to the gym and doing nothing. That to me is what using these tools, if you're going to outsource your thinking, that hard, rigorous thing where it's messy and it's slow and it takes time. We all can use these tools in some ways to help us, but I just think we have to be very, very careful not to outsource our thinking, and certainly don't post that Claude slop on LinkedIn. It's everywhere. And
right.
so yeah, I've had some conversations with friends about this because I understand, like, it can all of a sudden, you're like, wow, I'm a good writer. It's like, well, no, you didn't write that. You didn't think that. And we can all tell when we read it, like maybe there's a certain portion of the population that doesn't understand that that's AI slop, but most people are kind of aware of it now. It's not helping you. It's certainly not helping your thinking, and it doesn't make you look good out to the world of what you're trying to do. And so I'm trying hard to, because I've had to go through this the hard way. Like I thought I had those exact thoughts. Oh, look at this. This is great. And then you realize, like, well, it's not me. It's not. Yeah, I guess it's kind of good. It's okay, but it's not me. It's not my thinking. And I'm like that muscle, this really important muscle I'm trying to work. I'm not working it. It's going to atrophy, and that's dangerous. So I think it's a critical time now, especially for leaders, to be thinking about that, and to not outsource your thinking because that muscle will atrophy, and that's a bad thing.
No, absolutely, 100%. I mean, there's a few things I think it could be good for, but for the most part, like you said, that thinking aspect, like, again, when you even jump into Gmail at times and you're like, it wants you to just finish your sentence for you. It's like, no, let me think on my own. Like, I just want to
Yeah,
put together an email here.
yeah,
So 2020, you released Welcome to Management. 22, Pursuit of Excellence. 24, The Score That Matters. And now we're coming out with The Price of Becoming here in July. Every 2 years, was that again, something that with consistency of putting a book out, did it just kind of happen that way where it's been every 2 years since 2020 with Welcome to Management, kicking that off? And I guess, where did that inspiration even come to start the book process? But to now, like, we're at number four already.
yeah. No plan to do the every 2-year thing, and actually contractually with this book, I cannot publish one for 3 years. So the thought of publishing another one is does not seem possible right now. Like I'm out. I'm tapped out with this last book. I tried to put literally everything I had into it. I try to do that with all of the books. So it's when one of them's done, it's almost thinking there's no way there's going to be another one. I don't have anything left. I don't think you should leave things kind of waiting. Oh, I could use that on a few. I don't have any of that. Like I yes, we cut stuff from the book to try to make it as tight as possible, but there's nothing left. I'm like I put it all out there. I think writing is the greatest tool in the world for learning. Trying to become a clear, get those messy thoughts out of your head down onto the page. Again, not using AI is a great way to get much more clear on what you think and what you believe. It's a great learning tool. It's a great teaching. I think teaching is a great learning tool. And so I think I view books as like the ultimate act of teaching other people. And so I will always have a writing practice. The publishing chain of events of books, like I can't predict when the next one will be. I don't know what the topic will be. I am regularly writing and keeping notes of things. But yeah, I do think it's a good practice to get into. I've been fortunate to have publishers want to do book deals for all four of these now. And so as long as that keeps happening, I definitely will keep writing. Will I keep writing books? I mean, I don't know. History shows that I probably will, but as of today, I would say I don't know if I will. I know I will keep writing. I'm just not sure if I'll keep publishing books. But yeah, I think it's a good tool to kind of to spread your key learnings and useful things, try to help other people. And it's a completely different medium from a podcast. They're not all podcast listeners read books, and not all people who read books listen to podcasts. So it is interesting when I maybe meet somebody in the wild and they don't even know I have a podcast. When I would initially think like there's no other way you would have heard of anything I've done other than the podcast, and they have just read a book. So it's kind of cool when that happens. It's another signal and indicator like, hey, you should be on multiple platforms for reasons of discoverability. But really, to me, it's like it's selfishly like the greatest way in the world to learn. So that's why I always write.
To me on the outside, writing a fourth book, the more you write, I would say the more difficult it's going to get, then easier. A lot of things in life, the more we do things, the easier it gets. But to me, is it harder or is it easier? Going into that fourth book. And again, you talked about this one, The Price of Becoming, which every book I think can be, right? Some are made for everybody, some are made for a select group. I mean, you've really made it be known that this group is really for select people who really want to become next level. So, in adding that into this is my fourth book, like you said, obviously there's an exhaustive process of getting your thoughts out, going through the editing process, and everything in between. How difficult was it to put this one out? That's coming out here in July.
It was really hard at the beginning, especially I needed help. Dave Moldaware, my literary agent, and I went back and forth on this proposal to get like to make to, just like structuring ideas to keep the good stuff and get rid of the stuff that wasn't as useful, injecting a lot more of my personal life and story into this one than I have in the prior three. Less of a cover band, more of playing originals, I would say. And it really stemmed because I just been studying Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's work so much, and the power of compounding. In their case, it's usually with money and investing. But I just thought there's just a natural carryover to how you try to live your life using the same principles that both of those guys did in the financial world. And so it's really all about the power of compounding, but as it affects you as a person, both individually and then as you're leading other people, both in your professional and personal life. So once we kind of got a handle on that, like the theme, the through line of it, it was a better process. It's still hard. I still talk to my research assistant, Dan Smith, every day. We text every single day about ideas, about editing, about research, about stories to punch it up, to make it more interesting, about how much of my stuff to share and how much like what needed to be cut. So yeah, I mean it was just a never ending process to get it done. And once I made a commitment on January 1st to write every morning for an hour. Could not do anything else. And so I did that for 9 months. And there was so much garbage, by the way, and that, but there was also some good stuff. And the majority of what ended up in like the 55,000 ish words that I think we cut the book down to, a lot of that was written during that 9 month stretch where I committed that I'm going to get up and it's the first thing I'm going to do every morning was write for an hour. And I think again, staying consistent with that helped produce the work that's in that book now. So I'm super proud of it. I think it's good. I think it's super could be super useful for people if they're willing to do the work. But as a writer, I think the more you do it, yes, it's harder, but also you get better. And so it's just like a lot of things in life. The repetition of doing it has made me better at it. So I hope when people read it, they think like they see a progression of improvement over the course of the four books.
And is this like you touched on? You said there's more about you and your story in this one than maybe the last three. Is this depicted around you in terms of growing this and what it's turned into with all these interviews that you've done and how you've grown as a person? Or is it like you mentioned, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, kind of a synopsis of what they've done, how it relates to you, how you've grown, and just, what's kind of the viewpoint of people that'll be reading this?
Well, I've been fascinated with those guys for a long time, and it's really how some of the stuff I learned from them is then implemented into my own life, whether it's from earlier on through failures, through key learnings from people that I've like usually through sports earlier in my life, through losing a job. It was the first time I ever really lost in sport. I mean, I've lost games, but I've always been the starting point guard, shortstop, pitcher, and quarterback on every team my whole life. Never was ever in doubt of being that on every team. And so when you then get to a point and the coach looks you dead in the eye and says, "This other guy gives us a better chance to win than you do." I mean, that's 19 years old, like that's tough. And so going through that was something like people that like study my stuff are aware of that, but kind of going inside the process of all that happens in this book. And some of the key things I learned from Coach Terry Hepner, the late great Terry Hepner, that I'm very grateful for. I share a couple of new stories from him that some of my old teammates from Miami will, I think, smile when they read, because I open and close the book with Coach Hep. So it was a highly reflective period, trying to kind of dig up those stories and my key learnings and when I messed up and how I responded and yeah, so that's what a lot of that stuff made it into this one that again was not in the prior three.
Or you recently sat down in the last year or so with another Centerville grad and Kirk Herbstreit, and you guys were talking about his book and how he wrote personal stories in there, and it was kind of emotional. Like you going back through that and retelling those stories, what was that like for you to kind of go back in the archive and be like, hey, maybe some of these have been shelved. Maybe I really need to dive in a little bit more because maybe I forgot bits or pieces, or just really spend some focus time on that. What was it like to go back in time to kind of share some of those stories in this book?
I think it's helpful. I mean, it's that reflection, like thinking of specific days and moments and like the poems that Coach Hepner would read to us. And I published one of those poems thinking of, yeah, in a way though, like it was fun. Like, I mean, you go back, I remember those first, that year and a half at Miami, just being, I've never felt such an amazing amount of stress, like 24/7. We all have that in our lives now from time to time, kids, whatever, everything going on, but not like 24/7. From the second I got on campus and we played golf with Coach Greg Seaman that first day, and we're riding, we play 9 holes, and I got destroyed. And I thought, oh my God, this is this guy, he's just good at everything. Like he was a point guard, he was a shortstop, he was a quarterback. And then we get on the practice field that first day, and I thought, oh no, but hey, I'm gonna beat him out. Like I'll find a way. I'll find a way. And so, yeah, like thinking about those moments and thinking about how I was trying to respond and how I was trying to be a good teammate and be in the weight room and watch film and stay after at practice to throw with everybody, like all that stuff. Yeah, it was kind of fun to think through it because now, like, I know what's happened as a result, and I'm super grateful, and I wouldn't change anything. But at the time, it's not how you, especially at 19, that's not how
Yeah.
you think. You think like the world is ending. Yeah, I'm able to look back now and smile and be really grateful for it. I definitely was not thinking that in the time though, that's for sure.
I don't want to keep you too long here. I mean, again, you've been very gracious with your time. Top 10 on Apple Podcasts into the business section. I mean, again, all this stuff, Ryan Holiday had talked at one time when he was writing books, and I think was looking at, how much he was selling or how many people were buying, and was so caught up on the metrics and things like that. And to me, like, it doesn't seem like you've ever done that, because you were putting things out there because you wanted to get better, and whatever came with it came with it. If it was notoriety of, being top 10 Apple Podcasts in the business section and things like that. But have you ever got to a point where the metrics and things that you've done, because again, you're doing this for a living, where you're checking into those things more than you were originally? Because I've noticed with the podcast, when I started, it was like, I didn't know if 10 people, I didn't know if, I mean, my wife still hasn't listened to any of these. But if anybody would listen, and then it gets to a point where you get people listening, and then like you're discouraged when it's not as good as what it was at one time. So have you ever got to that point where you were so-called scoreboard watching or anything like?
Well, I mean, so credibility and discoverability is still a thing. I mean, I say things have shifted since I've hired coaches to work as part of my team. And now I feel a deep responsibility for them and their families. They're married, they have kids. And so part of my role is to continually help us grow the business because that makes their lives, it's not just about me anymore. So I think a big shift happened when my podcast ranks high or good things are happening. I'm more apt to share it now. One, because I think if people become aware of it and they listen or they read, it can help them. Uh, I told Adam Grant and I were having a conversation years ago where I said, Adam, like this self promotion thing, I hate it. I feel awkward, uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. I'm struggling with this. And he told me, I've never forgotten it. He said, you're not promoting yourself. you're promoting your work, and your work changes people's lives. And so I've been more apt and open to sharing the work and sharing when it ranks high or good things are happening after that moment, and because I'm responsible for other people and their families, because my prime one of my roles in our business is to earn the work, earn the business. Part of their roles are then to go execute, to do the leadership development work, to coach the leaders that we're working with. Well, that doesn't happen if nobody earns the business, and that's my job. That's 100% my responsibility. And so thinking of all of that and thinking of them, I can't ever get too comfortable because our clients currently are amazing and we're almost like at the point where we can't take on anybody else. My whole mentality is we got to keep growing. The credibility part is a very real thing. And so when good things are happening or we're being noticed for the work, yes, I'm going to share it more now because I think the work changes people's lives and it's part of my job. It's part of my responsibility. So I've shifted or grown a little, evolved a little bit. It's still uncomfortable. I don't necessarily enjoy that part, but I realize it does play a role. It is important, and if we want to keep growing, that is one of the things that's a part of it. It's not the only thing, but is one of the things that will help all of this thing grow. So I do it a little bit. I don't love it, but I will continue to do it because I know it's important and plays a role in all of this thing growing and improving and helping more people.
No, I love how Adam Grant reframed that too, right? Like the work that you're putting out there is quality, it's consistent. I mean, it's good work and needs to be known by people. So that helps you that way. I guess to finish up here, again, I'll make sure to share the book and the notes here and everything of the price of becoming here in July 21st, I believe it is. Ryan's fourth book dropping here. You know, if you were to give us one leadership quote, thought, nugget from your grandfather, your father, and your brother that you've learned over time, what would that be? One, it doesn't have to be a full, story or anything like that, but what is one thing that you've learned from each of those individuals? And obviously AJ being younger than you, but what have you learned from each of those as you've gone along in life or even just starting this venture over the last 10 years?
So much. I think my grandpa always told us when he told us when we were little, like you're gonna grow up and people are gonna ask for your guys' autograph someday. Be proud of the Hawk name. And so I've always tried to remember that. And I think AJ has as well, which is really cool. So I think we're very proud of that. I think as dads now, we also try to kind of instill that in our children. The second thing I would say for my dad is I was a freshman in high school. AJ was in seventh grade. Things were going well for me football wise. And he said, now that you guys are doing some things and AJ's about to do some things, you're going to get noticed and people are they're going to start talking about you. They're going to start writing in the newspaper at the time, they still have newspapers, I guess, but there's different things now. He always just said, never get too high or too low based on what those people say. Just keep going to work. And so I try to think about that now, like whether and my brother has to deal with it like a thousand times more than I do when it comes to people if they want to criticize or whatever, but never getting too high or too low based on that stuff, just getting up and keep going to work. And again, that's part of my family DNA, I think, is to get up and get after it and go to work regardless of what people will say. If you're gonna do anything of significance, people may write about it, they may talk about it, they may make fun of you, they may say cruel things, whatever. They may make fun of your appearance. They'll say anything. Like you've seen it, you probably follow stuff that happens online. You see what people say about my brother at times, and whether they're praising us or they're criticizing us, it's really about like let's just get up and get to work the next day. Stay composed. Don't think like you're amazing because they're applauding you, and certainly don't think you're not because they're not. Let's get up and go to work the next day, and that's what we try to do. And I think that's served us pretty well over the years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I can't appreciate you enough jumping on here, sharing your insights, how you go about things, how you've grown. And again, I think you're one of the best on the internet, not just saying that because you're on here and, being a fanboy or anything like that. It's been great to follow your newsletter again, just the consistency you put out. And it's so succinct, right? You got 3 articles, you got a quote, you got things that make you think, and then obviously the podcast and things like that, along with the keynotes and everything else that you're doing. So appreciate you really jumping on here, Ryan. It's been awesome.
Marcus, I'm honestly really appreciate your prep. It's obvious and it feels, but not like a conversation where it's scripted. It feels like you have a knack for this. So I really appreciate that. That means a lot. I am curious now that you've done it for a bit. What what have you found to be the commonalities of the ones who are really impressive or leaving a positive dent? Is there any like one or two things that again you how so how many episodes again?
This would be 67. So it started in
67
20
and how much time? Since how many years?
2020. So it's 2020 to 2021 really got after it.
Yeah,
22, I did a few, 23, kind of nothing happened. And then slowly been kind of getting back
get
into it
back into it.
again.
So
Yep.
what have you seen has been like, are there any commonalities or are there any things like, hey, they all seem to have this or they have that? Is there anything like that? Or maybe even like one thing that you've pulled?
I think, like, honestly, a majority of the guests, it's interesting to see that, how this whole podcast started, right? With the term and the title is that it is I started it again, looking and researching and realizing, like, yes, podcasts have had certain guests who have been fired, resigned, have come and told their story, but there was never a podcast dedicated to giving people that platform that shares it around and getting people on and having them talk and tell stories. And, again, you can tell people have never been able to share their story. No one's really listened. But again, I just got a DM on Twitter the other day of reaching out to a college coach. I think it was a JUCO coach on the men's basketball side. And he had said he just got fired the other day. I didn't actually even know that. And he's like, honestly, I've never known how to react to a firing because I haven't had it happen. But he goes, I've been listening to your podcast. And he goes, it actually helps me just listening to what people have been through.
Wow.
And so, that's been the interesting thing is connecting with people. I guess more so is that there's this desire for people to hear these stories because they've been through it as a coach or even on the athlete side. Maybe they haven't been through it, right? But again, something it all ends at some point due to injury, eligibility, weren't good enough for the next level. I mean, whatever the story is. So I think there's a lot of things about that. I think there's a lot of things also that people have said, and I share this with the ones that go through it currently because I know probably people don't want to hear it when you get let go is, oh, hey, you're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Right. Like it's encouragement, but you don't want to hear those words at that time because obviously it's not okay. But I would say the amount of stories I've heard that people very similar to what you said yourself, looking back and being like, I didn't really like that, what I was going through at that time. But now years later, you're able to reflect on that lesson and it's helping you and it's helping it pass along to others. And that story might have happened 25 years ago in your life, but it just hits that person right at the right time. And so the amount of stories where it's like, oh, I've been out of this 3 years now and I got back in, or I went in the business world. And you know what? I've actually had plenty of time to spend with my parents and they have not been, doing well. Whereas if I was still in it, I would be grinding away. I wouldn't have been near them. So there's all these things of like, once you're out of it and you get a few years to decompress, I think people realize it isn't as bad as obviously the term fired makes it out to be.
Hmm. Very cool, man. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So again, I can't appreciate you enough jumping
Yeah.
on. We'll get this passed out and shared out and obviously send it out again once the book launches.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it, Marcus. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining.